It is wild to think that we have now reached the end of this 2023 movie year, a year which is probably the best year in film that we've had since 2019. But despite how good this year has been, there still have been some really terrible films that I am going to talk about today. So, starting off, we have The Flash. It's funny because if you go back to June and you see this video I made about my most anticipated movies for that month, I actually had The Flash above Spider-Verse at number one. I was so excited for this film. The trailers looked great. The initial reactions out of CinemaCon were electric, and I was just like, oh my god, this is gonna be so good. This is gonna be so fun. No, it wasn't. The VFX were terrible. The performances were meh. Good to see Michael Keaton, but that was really about it. This is just a forgettable DC film and really just kind of what laid the coffin for the DCEU. And now, especially after Aquaman, it's over. Crater is next, and honestly, this film was just really forgettable. It was on Disney Plus for the span of a month before they got rid of it for tax write-offs, so I think that really says enough about the quality of this film. Just not that great, very forgettable, that's it. These next four movies here all kind of go hand in hand for me, where they looked really interesting but just didn't land for me. And that starts with Inside, starring Willem Dafoe, who gives a great performance here, but honestly, after the first 15 minutes, this film just got exhausting. And maybe that's what the filmmakers intended, but personally, I just found it kind of boring. And I was just sitting there watching it like, kind of wanting to turn it off, but also knowing, no, I'm gonna finish this out because I already started, might as well finish. I feel like the whole plot would have worked a lot better as a first act setup to something bigger. But instead, it just continues with what the first act sets up. And it's just kind of gratuitous. And like I said, it gets boring. And honestly, I can't even remember whether he gets out or not. That's how forgettable and just bland this movie ended up being for me, at least. But if you liked it, I totally get it because it's a really interesting concept. And coming right off of that, we have 65, which was this kind of interesting looking blockbuster type of film featuring Adam Driver and dinosaurs, and I was all in for the idea of it and just having an original blockbusters and featuring dinosaurs, which we don't get to see a lot in film. Like, really think about it. And aside from Jurassic Park or any knockoff of Jurassic Park, when else have you really seen dinosaurs in film? I'm sure that you can't really think of that many occurrences aside from like Meg 2, which I haven't seen actually. But anyways, I was really excited for this film, and kind of like Inside, it was just really boring. And it just kind of kept being the same thing over and over again, and I didn't really care for the relationship between Adam Driver and the kid that he was taking care of. But with this film, I do have to admit, like, some of the action/horror set pieces were really interesting, which is why, for me, this film is not lower on the list. Anise Men, I don't really have a lot to say about this film. I remember some really interesting cinematography going on, but aside from that, everything else was incredibly boring. I get it was trying to be this sort of high concept, artsy horror film, but for me, it did not land whatsoever. Fool's Paradise was Charlie Day's directorial debut, and honestly, after seeing it, I tried to go easy on the film, but as time has gone by, I have just liked it less and less. Charlie Day's main, character just can't talk whatsoever, so that is supplemented by this character played by Ken Jeong, who talks so much, and this character is so incredibly annoying. I want to just punch him in the face. This is just a film where one character really ruined it for me because the cinematography was pretty interesting at times. Adrian Brody's performance in particular I found to be really fun, And yeah, like this film had a lot of potential. Journey to Bethlehem is this musical about, the journey of like Mary and Joseph to having Jesus essentially. And yeah, I was sort of looking forward to it just for the sake that I am a sucker for musicals, and even if the movie itself is bad, I kind of look forward to there being a couple of decent songs here. And there was actually one decent song in this film, but aside from that, it was dreadful. And it was just like, it's so bad that it's good. It was that type of a film for me, but I can't give it credit for being so bad that it's good. I need to just sit here and admit this film was terrible, but at least, unlike a lot of these other films, I did have a relatively fun time in the theater because it was just that bad. Ghosted is a film that definitely was not so bad it's good. It was just bad. It was this action film starring Ana de Armas and Chris Evans that just lacked no real flavor to it, tried to go for way too many things and didn't stick the landing on any of them. Bad action, bad VFX, bad acting, honestly, which is really sad because Ana de Armas and Chris Evans are both really talented actors, but yeah, this was just a bad film all around, and really a big L for Apple just even releasing this film, because I kind of have been seeing Apple for the most part as this new HBO where most of the things that they make are really good quality. So this was just such a miss for the platform. Coming in second for the worst film of the year is actually a movie that probably got me a quarter of my current subscribers and over half of my current views, and that is Peter Pan and Wendy. This film was just, it was horrible. It's a horrible movie. Really just such a miss for Disney, and really kind of ruined a lot of the faith I had in Disney, honestly, and set them up for what has been maybe the worst year that company has had in at least a decade. I mean, honestly, things are just not looking good for Disney whatsoever right now. I guess the one thing that you can take away from this film that's kind of good is Jude Law had a fine performance as Captain Hook, but also, like, I feel like he was miscast a little bit, honestly, and they should have gone for a little bit of a quirkier actor to play the captain. Just to quickly rattle off a few honorable mentions who barely did not make the cut for this list. You have The Exorcist Believer, When You Finish Saving the World, Shazam 2, Quantumania, and Rebel Moon. But now, our number one worst film of the year is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Just look at the trailer and you can instantly tell that this is a bad film, but I wanted to watch it anyways out of, some expectations that this would be another one of those so bad it's good films like A Journey to Bethlehem was. But honestly, maybe there were a couple of scenes in here that kind of reached that so bad it's good level. But for the most part, this film was just terrible. And I sat there in just agony with how this film made me feel viewing it. I was in agony. It was painful. But I sat through it. I was a trooper. I feel like I came out of a war after watching that film. And I did it for this channel. I did it for the love of film, and so I could talk about it at some point on some random video, and here we are talking about this movie as the worst film of the year. Let me know what you thought about this year in movies. Let me know your top 10 worst films of the year, and did you like any of the movies that I had on this list? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below. And while you're down there, please feel free to like and subscribe. This is a really small channel that I am so passionate about, and I would love to have your support. Thank you all for tuning into this top 10 worst, and I can't wait to see you back for the top 10 best tomorrow. Take care.